Hello and welcome to In the Spotlight with QuoCircuit, the definitive podcast on digital disruption in the print industry. I'm Louella Fernandez, Director of QuoCircuit, and today I'm joined by Stu Brooks and Keith O'Brien from PaperCut. We'll be discussing recent announcements at the PaperCut Global Summit and also hearing more about their views on the changing landscape for cloud print. So welcome to the show, both of you, and if you could start with telling us a bit about yourself and your role at PaperCut.
I'm the head of sales and channel for Europe, Middle East and Africa. So just overlooking all of our go-to-market routes in the region.
Hi, Louella. I'm Keith O'Brien. I'm the head of cloud software at PaperCut, and I oversee the development of our cloud product portfolio, which includes PaperCut Hive and PaperCut Pocket.
That's great. And I know most of our audience will be familiar with PaperCut, but Keith, could you maybe tell us a bit about the history of PaperCut? It's obviously very established in the print management sector. And if you could just provide a bit of context and how it's evolved its offerings to today.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's quite interesting. The story goes all the way back to 1998. When an overflowing recycling bin next to a high school printer caught the attention of our founders, Chris Dans and Matt Doran. They noticed that the students were dumping piles of paper from printed documents that they hadn't even looked at. And so Chris and Matt, they were frustrated by the waste that they saw, and they developed a little piece of software, as they put it, to help schools to control what was printed, who printed it, and when they could print it. And lo and behold, that simple little piece of software was downloaded quite often, and it gained in popularity very quickly. And that led the founders to add many new features. Those features met the needs of thousands of customers, and those happy customers then introduced PaperCut to Ivy League universities, prestigious schools, government departments, and numerous enterprises as well. And so the initial tool that they developed back in 1998 has now evolved to serve customers in over 198 countries, and it's been translated into 28 languages. So yeah, it's come on quite a bit over the last 25, 26 years. And over the last 2 to 3 years, we've embarked on our cloud journey, which is quite exciting.
Yeah, I know we'll be diving into that in a bit more detail around PaperCut Hive, but you mentioned that it started in the education sector. So I know you also focus on the enterprise space. So Stu, could you tell us a bit about any changes you're seeing in the education sector, their use of print, and how they are changing their use of printing?
Yeah, I think what we've seen from a perspective is opening up of a new market. Effectively, PaperCut MF has always been strong in education. However, when we look at the brackets of education, K-12 was a presence for PaperCut MF, but was also a challenge. A lot of would be primary schools in the UK or K-12 elsewhere didn't always necessarily have the infrastructure to stand up on-prem technology. And what we've noticed is actually the way that sector's going is that they've really adopted cloud print and PaperCut Hive especially, primarily in K-12, students aren't printing, teachers are doing the printing, and therefore Hive is really well suited to that space. Now, as we move forward and as the roadmap develops and we bring in quotas and accounts and gateways, the whole further ed and higher ed will come. But certainly that K-12 space has been is the largest vertical we've got when it comes to cloud printing. We're just seeing, a really simple use case. So we want to manage our print. We want to control our print. We want to enable our teachers to print easily without that on-site infrastructure.
It's really interesting because one of the things that hasn't changed is that schools still need to print. If you think about exam papers, for example, schools still need to print those exam papers, and then those papers need to be converted back into scanned documents. And so printing really does play a crucial role in the life of the daily life of teachers. What I think is changing, much to what Stu referenced, is the shift to the cloud. In a conversation I had with a private school in the UK this week, the school wanted to eliminate the risk and the cost associated with managing their server. And so that drove them into a cloud print environment. And I think in addition to that, the school also explained to me, and I think this is quite common as well, is that they're trying to become more efficient. Teachers are more pressed for time than ever before. And so the administrator was under pressure to enable teachers to digitize their documents, but not just scanning those documents, but move those documents into automated workflows so that teachers can scan and store those documents automatically in online storage services like Google Workspace or Microsoft SharePoint. And so that, I think, is a big shift that we're seeing as well, where the admins are under pressure to make the teachers more productive and take away a lot of the administration that they themselves have to do with the printed page.
Yeah, it's interesting because, that seems that they're moving to cloud for the same reasons as many enterprise would be too, in terms of reducing cost and improving productivity. So Stu, I know PaperCut's also got a strong footprint in the enterprise space. What type of customers are you seeing using PaperCut and moving to the cloud in terms of your key accounts and other sectors, and not only sort of enterprise but SMBs as well? It'd be interesting to understand the profile of your customers.
Yeah, when it comes to PaperCut, the portfolio we've got, literally every vertical you can think of. However, we are seeing some verticals move to cloud quicker than others. When we look at PaperCut Hive, for example, anything within or cloud technology, I'll just say cloud print in general, any end user who's generally got a distributed site without data is there. So we've got real estate, I think that's second or third largest vertical. So you get past K-12 and then healthcare and pharma, financial and insurance, and real estate are the next three verticals. And I think that ability for end users to remove their infrastructure or consolidate their infrastructure means that anybody with that distributed site location really can see the benefits of it. And again, that could be a small, a group or a network of small doctor surgeries, real estate and estate agents. That distributed location technology is really something that we're seeing pick up.
Yeah, are you seeing that in terms of obviously the growth of hybrid work as well, I suppose, is leading to these distributed print environments? So is that something that's also been a driver for cloud adoption amongst your customers?
Yes, absolutely. I think that, when you think about the use of print management in the enterprise space, in many respects, it's all about control. And in other respects, it's about providing a service. And when you consider the hybrid working and individuals working and printing from home, it's important for enterprise administrators to be able to secure their printing and to be able to track their printing. And I think that's a solution that the cloud print management services really does lend itself well to.
Yeah, and it's interesting because our research shows that cloud adoption is increasing, but there's also mixed approaches by region and industry. And it's interesting you mentioned security there as a reason to move to cloud, because we also see it as a barrier to adoption because there are concerns around data sovereignty, data and document security, and so on. So I'd be curious if you could share anything you've seen in terms of your customers and being concerned about security, and how PaperCut Hive addresses some of those concerns.
I think security is key for everyone. I think especially when you get into a cloud space and your data is sitting elsewhere or being hosted by someone else. So I wouldn't say it's not tied down to a specific vertical. I think there's certainly more stringent controls when you get into the large accounts and enterprise sector when it comes to security. I think SMB organizations I'm not going to say more haphazard, but are maybe less stringent in their controls. I think that SMB space is used to consuming products and services via the cloud, and therefore, maybe don't have those stringent policies in place. Those heavy duty security questionnaires and demands for certifications that maybe a large accounts and enterprise do. And I know Keith can certainly can build on that one.
Yeah, thanks, Stu. I think the demand that we are seeing is for the print management solutions that we provide. They need to integrate into the trusted cloud services that our customers are already using, whether it's Google Workspace or Microsoft Entra ID, from an onboarding and a user management perspective, all the way through to cloud storage when it comes to scanning and delivering those files. So I think that's expected. That's a hygiene factor, but it also gives the desired confidence that our customers expect. I think in addition to that, we've put a lot of effort into regionalizing our data centers. And so there are customers in education, in local government, for example, in healthcare, who are particularly sensitive about where their data is stored. And so by deploying data centers around the world and giving our customers the choice, then they get certainty to know that their data is stored in the country of origin. And then another dimension was really quite interesting to think about is the way that the solution is architected, that we are giving customers choice. For example, if you want to keep all of your data on your own network, even with our cloud solution, we enable you to do that. If you are more comfortable permitting your users to print from outside of your organization via the cloud, then that's an option as well. And I think that what we are finding is our customers and our authorized partners are expected to be able to control where documents go and give their customers the choice. And that's what I think is a really relevant overlay on top of the regional data center, is giving customers the ability to configure and choose where their document and data goes within the cloud platform. And that's something that we found quite appealing.
Yeah, and as you said, I think that's very, very relevant because in terms of the cloud journey, organizations are at very different points of that journey, and some will have a preference for private cloud, hybrid cloud, or public cloud. So it sounds like PaperCut is addressing those requirements and providing that flexible approach to help them move when they're ready to that particular infrastructure. But also, I know at the recent summit you discussed some new pricing models as well. So yeah, maybe if we can move on to that. In terms of the recent Global Partner Summit, were there any particular key announcements? I know you talked about pricing, but yeah, maybe if you could go into a bit more detail around what was announced there.
Yeah, I mean, for us, the version 24 of PaperCut MF has actually got huge impacts on our cloud product as well. And you touched on pricing. What we've actually done is we have unified our licensing model across PaperCut MF subscription and across PaperCut Hive. So version 24 actually brought PaperCut MF, our typically on-prem self-hosted private cloud solution, into a subscription model. We're still retaining the perpetual, but bringing it into a subscription model to give customers that complete choice. So if that customer says, I am making a cloud journey, but I am not ready to move print to cloud yet, then we've given them that ability to now buy PaperCut MF as a subscription product at a level playing field to PaperCut Hive, so that when they make that transition, if they commit to that, if they're in that 3, 4, 5-year contract today, and they're hosting on-prem or most likely in a private cloud, but in 2 years' time, they're ready to move their organization, then they can transition that subscription service from PaperCut MF and just port it straight over to an equivalent PaperCut Hive subscription. So we're really looking to give them that complete flexibility for any product at any stage of their buying journey, whether they're heavily invested order into cloud and can jump straight into it, or whether they're just looking to make that change at some point in the near future. So I think this simplifies agreements for channel partners and resellers in terms of SKUs and that consistent pricing element, makes the transition of products easier as well. And certainly what we've seen, those large accounts and enterprises are absolutely interested in are keen on that subscription option of a product, because you've got the whole CapEx and OpEx benefit to them as well. But that ability to take a customer at any point in their journey and go, hey, you can invest in our on-prem product, and you're not penalized financially when you decide to make that journey to cloud. We can just take your subscription remaining and port you over. So that was our major announcement from a licensing and a go-to-market perspective. And I'll let Keith touch on the myriad of product enhancements and updates as well.
Yeah, thanks, Stu. I mean, with the alignment and pricing across PaperCut MF and PaperCut Hive, it was important that we close the gap between the two products as well. And so our summit was a roundup of all of the features that we've added to our cloud product and those features that we brought to market during the last year. During that time, we've significantly grown our customer base. And we now serve customers in 58 countries with printer apps supported in 14 languages. What was really exciting for us was the ability to talk about our new Canon and Lexmark printer apps, which brings our support for printer brands to 10, and I think more than anyone else in the market. So again, it's important to be able to give existing customers who are on MF a path to the cloud with minimum friction and disruption. And so in order to support that, we released and talked about a number of new features, chief amongst which were our manufacturer driver feature, which enables customers to take full advantage of the finishing capability of their devices. I mentioned earlier that we'd expanded our global footprint with 4 data centers in North America, Europe, the UK, and Australia. So our customers now have choice, which is important for education, healthcare, and local government. We also introduced print tracking and a new reporting interface. And as you mentioned earlier, that's really critical for hybrid working because it gives admins the ability to track and manage environments outside of their corporate organization. And our scanning solution is now more advanced than ever before, recognizing the desire of many of our customers to create digital workflows or to align with existing digital workflows so that they can scan documents into the cloud storage destinations that they're using. And once they've done that, they can also get the ability to search through many of the documents that they've captured. So it's been a busy year for us, and it was great to be able to announce all of that at Summit last month.
Yeah, and I think it sounds like PaperCut really made a lot of advancements with PaperCut Hive over the past year or so. And I'm just curious, actually, because one thing we see also in our research is that one of the other reasons that's kind of inhibiting the move to cloud is the performance compared to an on-prem version in terms of the product not being as fully featured. So it sounds like you've added more capabilities. Would you say you're nearing parity between Hive and PaperCut MF, or is there a reason that some features wouldn't be included in the Hive version?
There's always going to be deliberately so a difference between the two products. They are at their core very different. With PaperCut MF, you've got a very established print stack that's been around for 20 years. With PaperCut Hive, we had to redevelop and recreate our own print stack. And I think what we're doing with PaperCut Hive is we're building a cloud print management and scanning solution for the next 20 years, rather than looking back at the last 20 years that where MF served us really, really well. think the integration into the cloud, the digital workflows that we are enabling for our customers are vital. We still have some features to develop, which are going to be relevant to the verticals that we're targeting, in particular education. And we've got a market-leading product in MF to learn from and to leverage. And so that's really important for us. But I don't think they're ever going to be the same. They're never going to be equal to each other, but the gap is certainly a lot smaller than it was.
Yeah, and I think that's very true, is that the sort of modernising the print infrastructure needs very different functionality and capability. So I guess it's about future-proofing the product to support those requirements going forward. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. And just moving on, because I know there's always interest in print volumes and how print volumes are changing, and PaperCut obviously gets some great insight into that from its customers through tracking usage and so on. And I know some sectors are more paper dependent than others. So have you got anything you can share in terms of print volumes through Hive, and also any views you've got on how that's changing, and if that's recovering to pre-pandemic levels, or it's we believe it will never recover completely, but I think there are some sectors which are still very paper dependent.
Yeah, I mean, look, from a general industry's perspective on that front, without that, we're seeing there is a decline in units. The data's out there for everyone to see on that, and I think with less units, you bring less volumes. I think we have recovered to an extent. I don't necessarily like to use the term the new normal, because I don't think it's a new normal anymore. It's just where we are, and it's where we're moving to. But there still remain certain verticals that are paper intensive. We look at education. It's absolutely paper intensive. Healthcare, despite regional drives in some countries to move to a digital health service, we're still seeing an extremely paper driven, and that paper dependent at a specific point of process and business process within the healthcare space as well. Again, when you look at finance and insurance, again, still quite a heavy paper-driven vertical at times as well. But certainly, I think that the larger thing we're seeing some extreme aspects of device consolidation. And interestingly, we're seeing some of those customers that consolidated, they start to build their fleets back up to a level. So clearly, I think volumes are increasing. The demand for not necessarily print, but print, as Keith touched on earlier, print as an onboard to kickstart business process is driving that. We had one large enterprise customer that consolidated, reduced their fleet by about 80%. And actually they're now going very recently back out to tender to increase that fleet and replace the majority of the devices they got rid of. So there's definitely a demand, a recent increase in demand. But yeah, you're right. I don't think the industry's never going to get to where it was, I don't think.
And Keith, you mentioned when you were talking about some of the new features around scan workflow. So is that something you're seeing as a demand from customers that are reducing their print volumes, and then on the flip side, they're accelerating digitization and wanting to scan more and track scanning? Is that something you're also seeing with your customers?
Yes, we definitely are. And when I think about scanning, our scanning capability that spans both products, our server-based product and our cloud-based product. The cloud-based product is significantly different than the server one, but the volumes are growing month over month. So the number of scans that run through our platform continue to increase. And yes, I think that's reflecting the physical to digital transformation that we're seeing across the industries that we serve. It's quite interesting when I consider some of the conversations I'm having in Australia with some of our multinational enterprise customers. For them, printing still is essential, but it's essential in a service provision perspective. And what I mean by that is they're less interested in controlling printing and more interested in providing a frictionless service for the staff to be able to use when they need it. And so that, I think, reflects a different perspective on how print in enterprise is being considered. Whereas in schools, I think controlling and managing printing is still as important as before.
Interesting hearing the different approaches and why both sectors are ultimately using print for different means. But I agree that printing isn't going to go away. It's just evolving in terms of how it's being used, and scan as a result is increasing. But I think print volumes will reach that steady state fairly soon, and customer behaviour does change, but it doesn't change completely. And like you say, some sectors still need to, even though they're digitised, they still rely on print quite significantly. So just moving on to sustainability, because I think that's obviously very closely linked with the PaperCut ethos in terms of minimising and eliminating wasteful printing, and sustainability is now much higher on the agenda, and organisations are looking to understand more around the environmental contribution of print. And have you got any sort of up-to-date data around PaperCut Grows, which is something that I know you announced last year? And just interested in your views around sustainability, and if that's something that you're seeing as a key criteria when organisations are looking at using PaperCut and analysing their print usage.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right. Sustainability has been talked about for a decade, but I think it's really sort of grown teeth as a procurement decision, and certainly as a contributing factor in the last few years, without a doubt. PaperCut Grows for us, I think we launched last year, and you know that was our Forest Positive printing program. Has been immensely successful for us. Hundreds of customers globally have engaged with the program, and we've as a result planted over 140,000 trees globally. And we've seen it really well received by the channel. There are some really established, programs out there, such as Print Relief, etc. But what we saw for PaperCut users, be that resellers and end customers as well, is it was a great starting point and an opportunity to dip their toe in the water when it came to sustainability. We've integrated it into the product so end users see that dashboard, and they can see their forest positive status. And we've got customers coming back to us and saying, "Oh, I might be losing my positive status now. Can I make another purchase, etc.?" And we're seeing that's being used not just as a tender decision around sustainability, but it's about end users demonstrating to their workforce that they're invested in sustainability as well, and making sure that their end users know they're working for an organisation invested in that. From a reseller perspective, we've seen resellers using this as a way to differentiate, responding to tenders or going into business and offering to make customers forest positive as part of their buying cycle and as part of the reseller's commitment to the end user. So I know, we've got further plans to integrate PaperCut Grows with Hive as well, but it's been a really positive uptake, and it's a nice talking point, and it's a nice entry point for people to talk about.
Yeah, and Keith, it's we see this as well as that sustainability. As Stu mentioned, it's not just demonstrating that a product can help reduce environmental impact, but it's also how the channel can position and differentiate their offerings to lead with sustainability. So in terms of your views around sustainability and what you're seeing from a sort of product level, would you kind of align with that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sustainability is integral to everything that we do. It's integral to why PaperCut's here. It's part of the reason why we were created as a business, and it continues to live on throughout the product. And when I think about the sustainability impact on features, there are many features that are designed around minimizing waste. And so they may look fairly elementary to the user in terms of prompting them to go for double-sided printing, or prompting them to print in black and white, or simply cancelling jobs that no longer need to be printed. The entire platform has sustainability at its core. And when I think about PaperCut Hive, our newest cloud product, all of our waste management features, our waste reduction features, have resulted in 1,200 trees being saved from being turned into paper. And that's something that we present inside of the product, so that administrators can promote across their business how much a sort of change in behavior from applying the print management policies can positively impact the environment. And that's something that everyone inside the organization can get behind.
That's really important, isn't it, in terms of how users can be encouraged to change their behavior, and if they've got the right data from the PaperCut platform to actually understand how they're printing and what they could change around, like you say, rules-based printing, changing to double-sided or not even printing a document. I think PaperCut has always had those capabilities, and it's a case of how the channel can position that and drive changing user behavior, because ultimately within their customers, they'll be able to see a direct impact on actually reducing print volume. So it's really great to hear that PaperCut Grows has had such significant uptake. So thanks for sharing that. So we've heard about PaperCut's changes to its pricing to make it more flexible for partners, and also some of the new features with PaperCut Hive. So anything else on the roadmap that you can share in terms of what's next for PaperCut?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of an insight into where we're heading this year. For us, we are continuing to build on the kind of the usability and desirability of Hive. I think PaperCut's always been really easy to use, and our focus is on making it even easier for administrators to connect with the people who need to print, and making it really easy for the people who need to print to be able to print. We have to remove as much friction from that process as possible. And so one of the ways in which we will do that is by introducing single sign-on capability to complement our existing onboarding experience. And so for the end users, they'll be able to pull themselves into a print experience using the credentials that they use to sign into many of the software applications that already exist in the corporate environment. And in doing so, we'll also be able to offer and tap into multi-factor authentication. So that strengthens our security posture for our end customers at the same time. So that's a big addition that will be coming later on this year. In addition to that, we talked about education and that vertical being at the core again of our history, and we'll continue to focus on building out the education-centric features that schools need. So expect to see a lot more from us in that respect. And we're also seeing quite a bit in digital transformation. So there'll be more to come from our workflow automation and third-party integrations as well. But I think that's probably all I ought to say right now.
That's really useful, because I think you're mentioning that sort of multi-factor authentication, and I think that definitely is a core principle of zero trust, and we're seeing more enterprises obviously looking for single sign-on and multi-factor authentication capabilities across their IT environment, including print. So we'll definitely follow that, because I think that's a great addition to the PaperCut Hive platform. So thank you very much for sharing that. And in terms of, Stu, what's next for the industry? I know that you work very closely with your partners, and there's a different type of partner that perhaps is selling PaperCut Hive to the traditional PaperCut MF. So have you got any views or perspectives around how the channel is evolving and how you're working with different partners, and any other views on what's next for the print industry?
Yeah, I think from our point of view, definitely, the emergence of IT services and MSPs into the print space has been an interesting one to watch. You won't say who, but our largest global reseller of Hive is a IT services company, MSP, who barely sold PaperCut MF and barely sold on-prem technology. So I think Hive printing has indirectly enabled a new route to market as well, and that's going to bring a level of disruption. In some ways, there's positives there too, because I think as you come into cloud technology, it's no longer a case of, hey, just install this software on your Windows print server and all your infrastructure stays the same. I think resellers now, be that in the print industry or outside the print industry, that need to be more savvy, to understand network infrastructures, to understand document workflow paths, et cetera, et cetera. Network audits is probably more important than it's ever been. And we see the organizations embracing that, certainly being more successful when it comes into that cloud space. So certainly a disruptor or a new entrant to the market, so to speak, I think, that gets more privy. I think the other aspect that we're seeing is that transition away from hardware-centric leases and a finance-based model to a more consumer-centric world. We are, without doubt, seeing an increasing trend in end users that want to separate hardware and software from a lease these days. Again, that's where the whole OpEx, CapEx, and subscription aspect comes into play. But I think there also needs to be that change on the end user side of things. I think so many end users associate a managed print service or a managed service with a hardware refresh and getting a whole load of brand new boxes, so to speak. I think that times comes when consumers as well need to actually, if I'm buying a service, doesn't matter if my print provider is providing me brand new hardware or hardware that's got 50,000 on the clock. Ultimately the resellers are providing a service. What that service is provided on, I think, has to become less relevant, and it has to become a more service-centric model. So we're seeing, many people in the industry globally try device as a service options, and people are certainly talking to us and going, "Oh, is there a way that we can bundle the software into this and create a service-led offering?" So I think some of that's probably been driven by these IT VARs and MSPs as well, who come in with, device as a service as a given in the end user compute space, for example. So certainly some elements I think that are worth keeping an eye on, and some interesting trends that we're seeing as well.
Yes, I think cloud transition is still very early for the print industry. I think there's a lot of misconceptions that surround the transition to cloud. I think that there's plenty of opportunity around private cloud and public cloud. I think public cloud makes print management accessible to a broader market where it was simply not an option for businesses because of the need to have a print server. And so I think there's a lot of life left in the cloud transition for many businesses for many years to come.
Yeah, some interesting points. And I think, Stu, as you mentioned, that kind of convergence we're seeing between managed IT and management services is really important, because I think the managed IT service providers do come in with a different approach. As you say, they're more familiar with subscription model pricing, and hardware doesn't need to be wrapped into that at all times. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how the traditional channel accelerate their move to the cloud, because even moving to the cloud for them is quite different to the traditional MPS agreement. And and it's great to hear what PaperCut is doing, because obviously PaperCut's been very established in print management for many decades, and it's in the position to be able to lead this market with new business models and new features. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share all the changes that you're making around pricing and features, and also your views on the cloud transition, because it gives some great insight into what's happening amongst your customers and in the market. So yeah, really appreciate you taking the time to join me today.
Our pleasure. Thank you very much for giving us the time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So thanks again for joining this final episode of Series 9 of In the Spotlight with QuoCirca. For more information, please visit QuoCirca.com and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks again for joining, and I look forward to seeing you in the next series.